Mr. Chu, does TikTok access the home Wi-Fi network?
Only if the user turns on the Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, I may not understand the...
So if I have TikTok app on my phone and my phone is on my home Wi-Fi network, does TikTok access that network?
The final boss fight for any successful tech CEO's journey is to be summoned to Congress and be grilled by US government officials. And what is up with the flood of TikTok edits that are thirsting over the Singapore-based TikTok CEO Shou Chu? I mean, the guy is handsome, I get it, but there's gotta be other more dignified ways of showing your support, no? TikTok is a wonderful and a weird place at the same time. Today I'm going to go over the history of other tech CEOs who have gone through this rite of passage and have been summoned to Congress to talk about the suspicious practices of their tech companies. And we're starting off this list with the OG software person to have stepped on the toes of the US government, none other than your philanthropic lover boy, Bill Gates.
Not all companies succeed. Some fail to embrace change. This is the way technology in the free market works. The software industry's success has not been driven by government regulation, but by freedom and the basic human desire to learn, to innovate, and to excel. In the end, the software industry, which contributed over $100 billion to the national economy last year, is an open economic opportunity for any entrepreneur in America.
In the 1990s, Microsoft was known to employ some pretty shady tactics to keep the other competitors of its businesses at bay. Now, some of these malpractices in my eyes seemed like Microsoft was just being mean instead of doing things that are legal, but who am I to know? I don't work for the Justice Department. For example, Microsoft bundled its Internet Explorer product into the Windows operating system offering, so this kind of made it difficult for other competitors in the internet browser scene, such as Netscape, to come in and wrestle a bit of market share away from Microsoft's already dominant foothold. It may seem crazy to imagine that people had a hard time competing with a fossilized product that is Internet Explorer, but we're talking about the 1990s at this point. Some of the things Microsoft did were sketchier still. They made their products intentionally very difficult to interoperate with other products and third-party software. So if you were on the Microsoft ecosystem, if you were running a Windows software system, chances are you were going to buy Microsoft software products.
I know where else to go! I got nowhere else to go!
And here's another one that I think was kind of very scummy. Microsoft would enter into these exclusivity agreements with their suppliers, such as computer hardware suppliers and internet service providers, that would prevent these providers to be working with some of their competitors. Bill Gates was grilled on a lot of the business practices of Microsoft, and the consensus here was that Bill Gates was being pretty evasive in some of the answers he offered. Okay, the next tech CEO we're going to talk about was summoned to Congress to potentially defend tax evasion allegations. And the fact that this tech CEO wasn't grilled for anything else related to the business is going to make sense because historically, the company that this tech CEO led has been known to offer amazing data protection to its consumers.
My name is Tim Cook. I've been Apple's CEO since 2011 and a proud employee of this uniquely American company since 1998. At Apple, we make ourselves a promise and our customers a promise. It's a promise that we'll only build things that make us proud. As Steve put it, we only make things that we'd recommend to our family and friends.
In 2013, Tim Cook, or Tim Apple as some people like to call him, was summoned to Congress to testify against how Apple was not keeping a lot of its revenues in offshore bank accounts in order to intentionally evade taxes that it owed, that the US government thought it owed to the IRS.
Uncle Sam, I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my motherfucking money.
In fact, the US government was under the impression that Apple was evading billions of dollars worth in taxes that it rightfully owed to the US government by just having these offshore tax shelters in which it kept its money. To which allegation, Tim Cook answered, much to the tune of many other billionaires who want to be keeping more of their money in their pockets, that it is the US government that should be changing its laws and reforming their tax policies instead of Apple having to pay more in taxes or Apple having to do anything any differently.
I ain't doing shit!
Now we're going to fast forward to 2018, which saw not one, not two, but three significant tech CEOs get summoned to Congress to be grilled. Now we're going to start off with the CEO that probably gets nightmares where he's threatened by ChatGPT in some manner or capacity and who's responsible for leading the company that is responsible for indexing all of the public internet.
If I move from here and go over there and sit with my Democrat friends, which will make them real nervous, does Google track my movement? Does Google, through this phone, know that I have moved here and moved over to the left.
Not by default. There may be a Google service which you've opted into use, and if
So Google knows that I am moving over there. It's not a trick question. You know, you make $100 million a year, you ought to be able to answer that question. Does Google know through this phone that I am moving over there and sitting next to Mr. Johnson? It's yes or no.
I won't be able to answer without looking at
You can't say yes or no.
without knowing more details.
Yes or no?
I genuinely don't know without knowing
I'm
what
shocked you
services.
don't know.
Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, was summoned before Congress in 2018 to testify against the claim that Google had a bias which led to its search results favoring liberal viewpoints. All cards on the table, I thought that the entertainment value and the comedic timing of a lot of the sequences that happened during this congressional hearing was bellissimo. It was perfect. We were treated to seeing the CEO of Google explain how the internet worked to a bunch of lawmakers that were struggling to keep up. Also summoned in 2018 to Congress and also defending allegations of political bias was the tech CEO that probably has the thickest beard that you've ever seen in the tech scene.
Your company said that that your algorithms were somewhat discriminatory against Democrats. Can you identify which Democrat representatives and accounts weren't properly showing up?
We typically don't identify those as a matter of protecting their privacy, and they haven't communicated that, but we can certainly follow up with your staff.
Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, was summoned to Congress in 2018 and in 2020 to defend allegations of political bias on the app. Apparently, the lawmakers of Congress also weren't too happy about how much Twitter was doing to curb the spread of misinformation and fake news on the platform.
Fake news. It's fake. Phony. Fake.
And it also didn't help Twitter's case that they went around banning a lot of political figures that were very avid users, let's say, of the application. And last but not the least, 2018 also saw the hydro-surfing, MMA fighting, legless avatar creating tech CEO heading Facebook be summoned to Congress.
If I'm emailing within WhatsApp, does that ever inform your advertisers?
No, we don't see any of the content in WhatsApp. It's fully encrypted.
Right, but is there some algorithm that spits out some information to your ad platform? And then, let's say I'm emailing about Black Panther within WhatsApp. Do I get a Black Panther banner ad?
Senator, Facebook systems do not see the content of messages being transferred over WhatsApp.
Yeah, I know, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking about whether these systems talk to each other without a human being touching it.
Senator, I think the answer to your specific question is if you message someone about Black Panther on WhatsApp, it would not inform any ads.
Okay.
Now, the allegation of misconduct against Facebook was very, very serious. In fact, it was serious enough to suggest a compromising of the most sacred thing about the US democratic system, aka the ability to hold fair and impartial elections. Cambridge Analytica was a British political consulting firm that was hired by none other than Donald Trump's political campaign team to offer data-driven political campaign strategies for the 2016 presidential election. And the allegation here was that Cambridge Analytica was able to harvest data from millions of American users of Facebook to build these psychological profiles which could then be used to target political ads towards everybody in America. Zuckerberg was grilled extensively about his company's privacy policies and also on what he intended to do to make sure the data wasn't used or misused in this fashion in the future. Now, this fiasco led to Facebook paying a $5 billion fine to the FTC for its involvement in this scandal. And Zuckerberg was re-summoned to Congress in 2020, shortly right after, but this time to defend against allegations of political bias on the platform and about how Facebook wasn't doing too much to prevent the spread of misinformation and fake news. Now, I know what you're thinking. We're talking about gigantic tech businesses that have been undertaking these grossly anti-competitive practices. How is Amazon not in the scene just yet? And this is exactly probably what some lawmaker at the Department of Justice thought about Jeff Bezos, and hence he was summoned in 2020 to have his own final boss fight in the form of a congressional hearing.
So, Mr. Bezos, this is one of your partners. Why on earth would they compare your company to a drug dealer?
Sir, I have great respect for you in this committee, but I completely disagree with that characterization. What we have done is create in the store a place. If you go back in time, we sold only our own inventory. It was a very controversial decision inside the company to invite third-party sellers to come into what is really our most valuable retail real estate, our product detail pages. We did that because we were convinced that it would be better for the consumer.
Lawmakers accused Amazon of anti-competitive practices because they were using data from third-party sellers on the Amazon site to inform how they should be selling Amazon products on the Amazon site. Not only that, they were also undercutting the hell out of third-party products so that the Amazon products would be selling more. And the fact that Amazon had just gobbled up Whole Foods very recently did not play too well in Amazon's favor. Now let's talk about the most recent congressional hearing of TikTok CEO Shou Chu. Now the nature of allegations against TikTok and also the potential consequences of the results of this hearing are very severe. US lawmakers are worried that TikTok would have to helplessly comply if the Chinese government requested access to data of US users through the backdoor that TikTok may have open to the Chinese government.
Here's Johnny.
And the burden of proof on the TikTok CEO was to essentially prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that the data that TikTok stores on US users are exclusively isolated and stored on US soil by US companies. Now, TikTok and other Chinese apps such as WeChat is already banned in India due to privacy concerns, so there is some precedent to a ban like this. But the US has never before banned access to a social media site like this, and therefore this is a decision that lawmakers will need to contemplate very, very gravely. Needless to say, Facebook and Snap are on the sidelines, biting their nails in excitement at the prospect of potentially hearing news that would be bad for TikTok.